Because let's face it, I was going to have to talk about it anyway. Hello and welcome to my review of Christopher Nolan's final Batman film, The Dark Knight Rises, starring Christian Bale, Tom Hardy, Anne Hathaway, and Michael Caine. So just a quick disclaimer here, guys. This review is going to have some spoilers just because it is late, 3 weeks after the movies come out. If you care enough to be watching a review for this movie in that amount of time, I just have to assume that you've seen the movie already. So if you haven't seen the movie, go off and watch it because it is very good, and then come back if you want to hear my thoughts on it. So to keep it very simple, The Dark Knight Rises takes place 8 years after the events of The Dark Knight. Bruce Wayne is a recluse, and most of the characters in this movie are living under the burden of the lie that Harvey Dent was an immortal hero as opposed to a raging sociopath. And everything's going smoothly, so to speak, until a maniacal terrorist named Bane comes into Gotham hell-bent on turning it into an all-out war zone and defeats Batman, essentially, breaks his back, and sends him down to this pit to where he must rise again and become the Dark Knight that we all knew and loved to take on this immortal foe. So, The Dark Knight Rises, insurmountable expectations going in, obviously, because this is the sequel to my favorite movie of all time, The Dark Knight. In fact, as I was telling my friends before the movie started, guys, after this movie, there will be no more movies. For all point to other movies will vanish, for The Dark Knight has risen. And while it wasn't quite able to live up to those quite impossible expectations, I still found this to be a very good film, and a solid end to the trilogy. There's a whole lot to love in this movie. The performances are all excellent from the entire cast, especially Christian Bale as the most dynamic and interesting and brooding Bruce Wayne we ever received, Anne Hathaway as the seductive and sexy Catwoman, and Tom Hardy as the complete brutal force of nature known as Bane. He had a lot to live up to after Heath Ledger's The Joker, to say the least, but I thought that he really delivered not only a different performance, but something that stands on its own as maybe even as good. He says so much through the anger and emotion in his eyes because his face is covered by this mask, and just through his physicality and his eye work alone, he gets across everything you need to know about this character. And a lot of scrutiny has come under for the voice, and I kind of see where they're coming from, but I personally found his chilling, Sean Connery-type distorted accent to be perfect for the character and great juxtaposition for this big, intimidating man. I love all of his lines, and I still quote him to this day, and I found that he was just a complete force of nature and an amazing villain. I love the themes in this movie. I think that, like all of the Chris Nolan Batman films, this movie just has so many layers to it you can interpret it as. I especially love the bit where Bruce Wayne is in the pit after he's been defeated by Bane. I love how we get to see quite literally the Dark Knight rise out of this pit, which is actually a very clever reference to something in the comic books called the Lazarus Pit, which literally brings people back to life. In this movie, it figuratively does, and I love that. I love the themes of redemption in this thing. It's just so dense, like all the other Batman films. I love how the ending of this movie, we get this grand, sweeping action sequence of this war, because we really haven't seen that in a superhero movie, like an all-out realistic war, and I loved how they portrayed that in this film. The action scenes were shot by Nolan beautifully and choreographed amazingly, especially in one absolutely chilling fight scene with Batman and Bane towards the beginning, the one where he breaks his back. That is one of the most incredibly filmed fight sequences ever because it's just not up close, not shaky, but you feel every single punch these guys throw at each other, and you see all the bits of it, and it is one of the best fight scenes ever filmed. Now, what didn't I like about this film? Well, for one, it just felt a little bit more jumbled than The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight was so clear in the themes and the atmosphere and what it wanted to do, and this movie just seemed a lot more like it was going for several different things and just kind of did a very good job with each instead of a superb job with anything. And while that was an okay flaw, it just kind of detracted from the overall power of the movie. Also, I found Anne Hathaway's character of Catwoman, while she was very good in the film, to be utterly pointless and not really serve the plot at all. And same kind of goes for Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He was good throughout the movie, but the twist at the end with the whole Robin, poke, 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 wasn't really necessary. I didn't like the way Bane died. I thought that was very weak, the way he was just shot and then was just taken out of the movie forever. And I thought that even the reveal of Talia al Ghul with this Marion Cotillard character could have just been handled a whole lot better. And for all its improved special effects and larger scale, it just doesn't feel like as big and grand of a film as Dark Knight did. And maybe that's just because the themes in that film were much more powerful. But overall, The Dark Knight Rises is a thrilling and strong conclusion to what I think is one of the great trilogies of all time. It's not great, it's not as good as The Dark Knight, but it is a very good film that I liked a whole hell of a lot, and I give it 3.5 stars out of 4. And that was my review of The Dark Knight Rises. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, and until next time, I'm Movie Kid Mike.